Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. Today we're wrapping up the series on backlogs and Agile boards. We had the pleasure of speaking with great guests about various tools in this space, including Clickup, Jira, Pivotal Tracker, and Shortcut. So let's go ahead and hop in. How you doing, Moshe?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Doing good. Wrapping up the summer.
Yes, I know it's so nice outside, although in some places of the world it's very, very hot.
Quite hot. Yes, it is.
Yeah. And don't forget also, we talked about Azure DevOps.
Yes, we did. I can't leave us out. So yeah, we did talk about DevOps as well. So
so that was an interesting series. Every series is interesting.
Yes.
I find.
Yeah, I agree. There's always little nuggets in there, sometimes big nuggets, that we weren't anticipating. So some of these things I was not aware of, like Clickup. So it was great to talk to Sam about that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's still many other products, like in every other space. There are many other products that we didn't cover, but we can always cover them in the future, of course.
And that's it. We can't always get all of them, but hopefully the ones we do can give the listeners enough flavor to understand like what's out there and what's available.
Right.
To get them started.
Right. And I think that one of the things that is interesting about this space is that, the Jira world, or how much Jira is dominating the space. I find it really interesting. And I don't know if this is because, sheer luck, or because it's the best product.
First thing that comes up in a Google search, maybe.
Maybe. Or because, once people have lots of experience with it, they just take it with them to the next place they go, or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or people just by default, they're like, okay, so what do we need to use? And everyone saves Jira, rather than really look into the needs of the team, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And CJ, he was talking about that, how they replaced Jira with Shortcut, because they felt it wasn't strong enough for their needs at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if Sam said anything about using Jira. Yeah, he did use Jira before, right?
He did. Yeah, I think he may have been a
Jira admin even.
Admin, yeah. I think he may have been admin.
Yeah. So there are definitely other tools that can definitely replace Jira and could even be better than Jira for your team.
Yeah, and Wes hadn't even used it, but Wes hasn't had a need to use it. So, he's found that Pivotal Tracker has been a great tool for his team. So,
exactly.
It's not Jira is not the solution for everybody, even
he
though
was the old one that never used Jira, which was very interesting.
Yep.
And, this is not a bash about Jira. That's not my intention to have a Jira bash episode or anything like that. But even now that I'm using Jira, after using Azure DevOps for 3 years, I kind of feel that I like Azure DevOps more.
Interesting take. I like to hear that.
Yeah. There are things in Jira that are very... I don't know how to even describe it or where to point my finger on it. It's not as strong as some of the other tools, I think. And I don't know. Let's talk again. This is not a Jira bash by all means. I know that many teams are using it very successfully.
Yes.
So that's probably the reason that they are the dominating system out there.
Right. It's clearly good at certain things, or else it wouldn't have such a presence that it does. So it definitely does some things really, really well. So I think it's just a matter of scale sometimes. Like what are you trying to accomplish, and at what level are you trying to accomplish it at?
And like any other tool, how well are you utilizing it?
Yes.
You could have the best tool in the world, but if you don't utilize it properly, then it's not going to work for you.
Right. And what do you always say? Like a tool is just there to help us execute our work.
Exactly.
It's not there to do the work for us, really.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I think this is also one of those things about Jira, that if it's not utilized properly, then it has lots of issues. And this is where some of the flexibility of Jira is really has a huge strength, because you can define like any workflow that you want. And Emily mentioned how it can be risky sometimes, but if your team is really dedicated to use it properly and you have the right, everyone are actually utilizing it the way it's supposed to be utilized, and you build the right workflow for your team, then it is definitely a very, very strong thing to have.
Right. And I think that maybe that's something to it. Like if you understand your team and what your team needs, what your organization needs, maybe you can find the tool, because when you mention workflows, Sam mentioned in the Clickup episode that it doesn't have workflows. It doesn't use the idea of workflows. So if Jira is doing the workflows and ClickUp's not, how do you want to define your team, and how do you get the work done? And then go out and discover what tools can accomplish that. Instead of building for the tool, build your team and then identify a tool that can help you accomplish that goal.
Right. And sometimes what I find also is that when you have someone coming in and they have this experience from other places, and they build the tool and the workflows based on that experience, it may not work for the new team they are on. So they think, oh, I just need to educate them, or they just need to do this or do that. But sometimes it doesn't work.
That's a good point too. And CJ mentioned that with the shortcut episode, how, onboarding new people, it's not an intuitive, at least to the team he's working on and heads, it's not intuitive for the people coming on board. So that was one of the struggles that they had with Shortcut.
And then the interesting thing that we're talking about right now is about tools that we're using for our daily work, and everyone is using one of these tools or a similar tool.
Yep.
Then we really need to apply the same questions to the tools we are building ourselves, to the products we're building, because we need to make them easy for people to use and onboard. We need to find out what product market fit is. So there is so much we can learn from the tools we're using as being users of those tools to the tools we're building, that we're not necessarily the users of the tools.
That's a good point, because I'm thinking of using these tools. I mean, what works and what doesn't work, what you like and what you don't like, and you can apply these thoughts to the applications you're actually building. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
And that's why I always was saying to when I was talking with product managers of products that I'm using, I was always telling them that I'm jealous, about jealous of them working for product companies that cater to product managers, because product managers know how hard it is to get to the users and talk with the users.
Right.
So we're very much willing to speak with those product managers and tell them what we want from their systems. So their job there to get there to the users, I think it's so much easier.
That's an interesting thing.
Because
trying to get to the users when your users are part of your own space. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to to the tools we talked about, there was we already mentioned about the workflow. So there is that difference between some of them where they have a very flexible workflows that you can set up, versus they don't have workflows at all, and they kind of force you to do work the way they do. We talked about that with Sam about ClickUp, and with Wes about People Talk Tracker, that they have their way to do things and they want you to do that. Right?
Opinionated. Yep.
Yeah, opinionated, exactly. Where others like Jira, you can define any workflow that you want. Azure DevOps, it's not so much about workflows, but they do have, you could define any step in your, I would say workflow. It's just not shown as a workflow. It's just, but you could still define any status that you want to move into, and then you can define rules where things can go into and out of and stuff like that. Requirements for your fields, that you have to have something in there before it goes to the next one, etc. So it's also quite flexible. So that's like one big distinguish between those systems that we learned, right? Other things are about the how easy it is to start using. So you mentioned CJ that said the shortcut is a bit harder to start for new people. And I think with Jira, it's probably very easy to start because most people know it.
Yeah.
So you kind of like reduce that initial starting point. But then on the other end, if you configure it to work in different ways, they have to kind of get into that.
And I was mentioning with DevOps, just coming from the Microsoft stack of tools, it has that, the being able to, I've not used it in the past, and then being able to get up to speed on it, at least get comfortable with it, relatively easy.
Right. Other than finding the administration options.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Some of them it's fine, but some of them are hard to find.
There's some of the settings and configurations that, but overall from just hopping in and trying to understand like how it's all laid out and stuff.
Right. And how the boards are nicely shown on the screen and the cards and all that stuff. So that and hierarchy of epics and features and stories. So there is a lot there, definitely. What other themes like that did we learn here in this series?
Well, I was thinking again with the Clickup when it talks about the one app to replace them all. So
right.
I was trying to think of how that relates to the other ones we talked about, with Pivotal Tracker and Jira, and, how that approach is different than maybe some of these others. Pivotal Tracker is not trying to solve for all your stuff, whereas Clickup allows you to do tasks, docs, chat, goals, whiteboarding, collaboration kind of stuff. So it does try to do everything, but I wonder how it, and Jira has some of that too with Jira and Confluence. Maybe not at as many things with as Clickup has, but yeah, it's curious to see like how Clickup is trying to solve these problems for product people.
Yeah.
Very kind of holistic way, a very umbrella kind of way. Like I'm going to try to solve all these things for you, and you can just live on our platform and do all this stuff there.
On the other end, there is one thing there that kind of rubbed me off wrongly. And this is the word project, project management. It's like, I don't know why, but I know project management has its place and it's definitely needed out there. But every time that someone calls my product a project or calls me a project manager,
you'll cringe.
I cringe and I have like a bit of a reaction there. So, they do sell it as a project management system. And I think that it may not have started really from product perspective or from product teams or development teams. It may have started from the project management world, and then kind of morphed into our world, which is fine.
Yeah.
And Jira, sorry, not Jira, but the Agile boards like Scrum board or Kanban boards or etc. are ways to manage a project. So there is a project management aspect in there, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that it isn't, but when you say, and maybe this is my own bias about that, because I worked in the past, on project management systems, but I also see, when people are talking about project management, they still think Gantt charts. Yeah. Or maybe it is more like my generation and the older people in the industry, rather than the young generation, where to them an Agile board, a Kanban board is project management, right? They don't really know what a Gantt chart is, or they don't use Gantt charts. So there is that in my mind anyway, and that's why I'm talking so much about it. An importance to differentiate between the two. And what I'm fearing is that when a product sells itself as a project management system, it doesn't differentiate between the two. But again, maybe it's all in my mind. So it will be interesting to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I'm thinking of these tools in terms of how long they've been around, and the idea of, moving project to product, is relatively new speaking. And so when they were on the scene, when they first came out, they started building for project management. And so they built those Gantt charts and stuff in there, so that when they got up and running, they had all that. They onboarded customers are expecting that. But as the trend has moved to more of a product focus, and they've had to now cater to also product teams, they're trying to make both sides of the house happy. And because I do see that too. You go to the websites and they still have the word project, and it says project for helping software teams. I'm like, well, maybe you should say product there. And I'm thinking of the case of like Pivotal Tracker has that, I think. So, I think there's still this level of like, hey, we still need to cater to our past and also onboard the future. And so they're trying to kind of merge those two together, and some may be more successful at that than others. But
or it is, who is it that they're selling to versus who is it that is using it?
Yes.
So the one that pays the licenses are not necessarily the people that are using it, and they're more like, oh yeah, I need someone to manage this project, and they don't have this specific distinguish between the two, where a lot of marketing sites are catering to, and it's not necessarily what the product is catering to. But I think this is a very good point to distinguish about, mainly because we know that project management doesn't equal product management. But maybe I'm, just too fussy about it. And
No.
As a tool, it is a tool that actually manages projects, because we build a feature. So we have this project to build this feature, and then we build another feature, or we enhance this feature, or whatever it is, right? But then at the end of the day, the other tools that we're using in our stack are more catered toward the product itself. But if a tool says to me, I'm the one tool that replaced them all, maybe that's where it rubs me wrong.
That does everything for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I wonder, if you're going to do everything for everybody, are you going to be, excel at one thing, or just be good at these several things?
Yeah, exactly. And this thing came in the past, about other tools that are trying to do a lot of different things versus tools that are specialized in.
Yeah, we saw that with product analytics, right? So with like Pendo had several things they were working on, but then you had something like the Mix Panel that was exclusively looking at analytics.
But then we also saw since then that some of those companies are also adding more features that are not in the core analytics.
Right. So, I think Heap was trying to do that too. But I think it's really interesting. I mean, in terms of becoming a platform, like, we live on Microsoft Teams where I'm at, in terms of like communication and collaboration and sharing of information. So, if you want to be a platform and just say, hey, you're going to come to Clickup and you're going to be able to do everything on our platform, and versus, going to say Pivotal Tracker and, having your backlog, but then having to go to ProdPad and do strategy and product work, and then design having to go to whatever tool they're using, and then going out there and then trying to integrate it all into one. Maybe that's what they're trying to solve for. They're like, hey, your team doesn't need to be siloed in these other tools. Let's just put it all into one, because that's one of the drawbacks of DevOps, is that DevOps is backlog has a lot of developer centric tools and features, and if you want product strategy, you're not going to do that in DevOps. If you want design, you're not going to do that in DevOps.
Absolutely.
It's a ticketing system, and so that's a point that you're going to have to discuss with your team and discuss with your direction and your strategy. Like, what do we want? Do we all want to be on one platform, working together and collaborating? So I think it has pros and cons for sure.
Absolutely. And some people have preferences for that. Like, some people have a preference to use the best of the best and then integrate all of them together.
Yep.
And other people have preference to just use one big system that does it all and not have to deal with all the integrations.
Yeah. So, and that's where the product stack comes in. You and I love talking about product stacks. And I think that the idea of like having, a product team, product manager, you can all use all different types of tools, and you typically have to in order to accomplish a task or a strategy. So I think trying to minimize that is a good goal.
Yeah.
You don't want to be using 20 different tools to do things, I don't think. But if you're able to minimize it in some way, and that way your team can all have a source of truth and at least a platform to go to and say, hey, this is our backlog. These are our boards. We can also do some of the other things in here.
Yeah. Nice. So one of the other things related to this, and I think we talked in many other episodes before, is how these systems are integrated with other systems.
Yes.
And because of Jira's dominant situations in the world, every new product out there, the first thing they do is integrate with Jira, because they know they will capture so many people that are using it. You mentioned Teams, and I recently also moved from Teams to Slack, and I hate it. I never liked Slack, and I still don't like it. I think Teams is a better system than Slack.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but like one of the things over there is I just, for example, to mention a ticket, to mention a story in the chat. So in Teams, there was a plugin, a very simple plugin, Teams plugin, that all I had to do once is install it and connect to my project. And then I would just click on it, and then I can search my tickets directly from Azure DevOps. And then I would, and it might be also Teams does the same thing with Jira and others. I'm not sure. I didn't use it with Jira. But Slack doesn't have that, or at least I couldn't find a way to do that yet.
Okay.
So when I want to mention, I always have to go to Jira, copy the link, and then put it inside Slack, which is very annoying.
Oh, that's, yeah.
It's extra steps that I have to do.
Yeah.
Now, given most people on my team didn't know about this feature in Teams, so I had to always tell them use that, because it saves so much time and clicks, and it's just so much faster. And it also would give you a nice card inside Teams in the chat, and it will show you the details, and then you can click on it. So you don't need to remember what the story number is. You saw it in the card, in the details. But that's one of those things that we also talked in the past about when we had this series for the startups. We were talking, I was still using Azure DevOps back then, but they always, all of them said, yes, we already integrated with Jira. And then most of them were not integrated with Azure DevOps. So,
yeah.
And even when we got, when I started using Product Board, was the same thing. Their integration with Jira was much deeper than their integration with Azure DevOps. So that could be also another reason why some people choose a specific system, because it's more integrated with other systems that they're using.
How does it fit within the larger product stack that we already have?
Yeah, exactly.
Pre-existing stack.
Yep. That ecosystem that it's in.
Yep. That's an important thing. And even long term, like what's your strategy in terms of design and stuff like that? I forget which one we talked to, which guest we spoke to, but like the idea of Figma integration, be able to integrate Figma designs into the backlog. But yes, just the idea of that, like, and like you're saying, the ecosystem and being able to have everything connected as best as possible, or trying to do as much as possible on one platform, like a Clickup. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on what your flavor is, what your pre-existing stack is. Would that kind of clear the deck for you in terms of communication? Like if you're using a Teams or if you're using a Slack, you say, okay, everybody's going to move to Clickup and do all your chat and whatever over here. And do your collaboration over here. And what does that do for, hey, I like Slack, or hey, I like Teams, or what does that do for your product team and your engineering and design?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we talked a lot about a lot of different things that we learn, and it's amazing even how with going back to the basics of a product like that everyone is using, and thinking probably there is nothing to talk about this, that we still learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
And this is why I love doing this.
Yeah, I do too. And I really like talking about like the opinionated software versus the more configurable software. I think that got me really thinking about how the systems that I've used in the past and how I'm using today and what I want to use in the future, in terms of the ability to make something extremely configurable and very complex, versus being able to use something that out of the box can help you solve problems. And they both have advantages. But to me, I like probably a more opinionated software. So that conversation kind of with Wes and talking about Pivotal Tracker really got my mind thinking about that.
Yeah.
I guess I don't like complexity at the end of the day. I like, you have the paradox of choice, and if you have too many choices, you can get overloaded and just make things extremely messy and difficult for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I tend to go more simple and as much as possible. And I think that's a really interesting approach when not only what software you're using, but what software you're building.
Right.
And
that's a very interesting point, because I also like simplicity, but I also like to have the option to make it
complex. Yeah. I think if humans have the option, they typically will lean to they make things complex. I mean, I think
that's human nature.
It's human nature to overcomplicate things. If given the choice.
You're right. And especially if we're starting something new, we want to learn from other people's experience.
Yep.
And that's where the opinionated software does.
Yeah.
They think, this is the best practice and you should do that because it works.
Yep.
But it's funny because, best practice is like dictators. Yeah, exactly. Yep. But it's like a monopoly of that's the one way and the only way to work, where it's not really right. I mean,
it's not.
different ways to work for different teams.
Yeah.
And that's why flexibility works usually. But maybe that's where, templates can work, that could be very simple, but then still let you choose.
Yeah, there's probably a sweet spot there. I mean, there's got to be some sweet spot. Where you don't want to give, the keys to the car and let someone just make it whatever they want to, just customize it to, to death. But also at the same time, like you're saying, not be a dictator and say this is the only way to do it, because then you're going to turn people off, and it's going to be like, hey, that's not how we do it. So I'm not going to purchase your product because that's not how we do it. And then you're building, then the team would have to build towards your product, where I was mentioning before, like you need to build your team and then find a product that suits your needs, and not build towards the solution, because you don't know if that solution is going to be around forever. So you may find something better and be like, hey, we scaled our team based upon this tool, and now we're kind of stuck with it. So it's an interesting thing, but I think there's a nice sweet spot somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely.
And if a backlog tool can find that, and then I think that and if teams can find that tool, then I think that's sky's the limit.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we talked about a lot of things, and I think that's really summarized a lot of what we talked about in the different episodes. Again, if anyone has other products they want to talk about or want to comment about what we said, we would love your feedback. You can always reach us on LinkedIn, and you guys already know that we love talking about products.
If there's someone out there using Azure DevOps, Moshe and I had a conversation about it. But again, if someone out there is heard something in the conversation they'd like to add on to, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So what's next?
Yeah, so I think we have some interesting shows coming up. I think we're going to have some interesting series that I'm particularly interested in, since I like to do product design, mock-ups, that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that we get a chance to talk with some great guests about some of the tools out there. I think there's some really exciting tools out there, whether that's from a whiteboarding collaboration standpoint, or whether that's from doing mock-ups and stuff like that, wireframes. So I'm really excited about the possible series to come.
Yeah. And we're still looking for guests for that. So if you're using one of those products, let us know. We will always love to have you on the show as guests and learn from you.
Yep.
And also, we're looking for guests for the one-off episodes. We have some people in the pipeline that we're planning to talk with, but there is always some new point of views related to what you do in product and the tools that you're using. So we would love to hear from you.
Right. To note on that, we talked about it before, the ideas around product operations. I think if there's someone out there that's wants to talk product ops, I think we're all ears, and I think that's something Moshe and I are always excited to talk about. So we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Thanks so much, Moshe, and listeners. Really do appreciate all the support and feedback, and we look forward to speaking with you all again soon.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.